Hey guys, Tim here. We're looking at Dirty Red. This list is a little bit different from some of the stock lists you see going around. We'll start from the top here. I'm running 1 Manamorphose instead of the 4 Desperate Rituals. Desperate Ritual is pretty important in the deck, but late game it is not super great, especially if we have plenty of mana. So Manamorphose is giving us just a little bit more card draw. There's some folks who run Manamorphose instead of Gitaxian Probe, and I do not agree with that choice. The Insight's super important. Also, Gitaxian Probe you can cast turn 1, whereas Manamorphose you have to wait until you get a second land. If you never hit your second land drop, you're really sad to be sitting on a Manamorphose where you could have had a Gitaxian Probe to potentially draw you into that land. Moving further, you'll notice I'm only running 3 Titan Strength. One is to make room for the Rouse the Mob, since both are not very good at pumping to protect our Kiln Fiend, so better to take a slot from that than from something like a Brute Force or a Mutagenic Growth that can actually save Kiln Fiend from a bolt. And that's the next thing, is Rouse the Mob. We cut an Apostle's Blessing and 1 Titan Strength for 2 Rouse the Mob. This is my super sweet tech. It gives us a little bit more evasion, which is often really relevant. There are a lot of matchups where we just need a way to get through them in order to kill them. Otherwise, we have all our combo pieces, and this gives us just a little bit more, and it gives us more damage. The Strive is potentially relevant. Honestly, I have yet to cast it, but in games where we are flooded out with creatures and we draw into a Rouse the Mob, it can be relevant if we have ended up with enough lands or a Desperate Ritual. So I've been testing it out, and it's been working really well. I'm pretty happy with it. Over on the board, we have the 4th Apostle's Blessing. 3 in the main. Pulling out 1 for the Rouse the Mob was actually a pretty easy choice because Apostle's Blessing is super dead against Eldrazi because they're colorless. So protection from a color, protection from artifacts, completely irrelevant. It basically is useful against 4 cards in their deck if they are running the Dismembers. If they're not, it's pretty worthless. So those get cited out against Eldrazi. But we have the 4th one in here because when you do need them in the deck, they're really important. Then I'm trying out 1 Noxus Revival. I don't know how I feel about this yet. It's a way to get your creatures back from the graveyard instead of relying on drawing into something randomly. And it can cast for free, so it can add to our little pseudo storm count, which is nice. It can get us back another spell, so we can cast Titan Strength on our turn, swing in for a bit of damage. Next turn, or we can Noxus Revival it back before we draw. Draw into the Titan Strength again, cast the Titan Strength, cast a Double Strike spell, get all of that going towards our count, increasing our damage. Instead of, potentially drawing another land. Oh, that's great. It's not very useful. Over in the burn spell range here, we've got 2 Lightning Bolt. A lot of people are running 4. I cut 2 of them to make room for these guys here. Gutshot, pretty relevant, especially against, like, Thalia. Thalia is a huge pain in the butt. Death and Taxes or Hate Bears is a terrible matchup, thanks to Thalia. And this just gets rid of Thalia, and it only costs us 1 mana and 2 life, which is pretty relevant. If you're running Lightning Bolt, they Thalia on their turn 2. You don't draw into your second land. Well, you can't cast your Lightning Bolt because it costs 2. Gutshot can still take care of Thalia. Electrickery is in here partially because of Hate Bears, because it can take care of their little guys, but mostly for the 8-whack or Goblin aggro that's out there. They have a very similar strategy to us, which is an aggro combo creature deck, but they are rely on going wide, and all their creatures pretty much have 1 toughness. So we can do this at instant speed. We can wipe all their guys off the board. Super relevant. I'm really excited to run into a Goblin Bushwhacker or 8-whack matchup and pull this guy out. We're running the 3 of the 4 Young Pyromancers that you often see in the boards with these guys. I believe in the power of this card, but honestly, I very rarely bring it in. It is mostly some tech against decks that are just going to have too much hand disruption. Gives us a little bit more value out of that, where we're just going to play kind of a mono-red, less good Delver kind of strategy. And Young Pyromancer, honestly the only game that I brought it in a long time. It was the last card in my hand when I won the game. So I don't bring them in super often these days, especially because you don't see a lot of Jund. And a lot of other decks with good hand disruption that you just don't have other answers to, or that you can outrace. Molten Rain is actually mostly in here because I don't have Blood Moons on Magic Online, but I do still run one of these in paper because they can be relevant, especially against Eldrazi, if you can actually get them on turn 3 and they happen to have a slow draw. But Blood Moons would be better because they're way more relevant against more decks. We're running, well, one Smash the Smithereens, pretty standard artifact removal. Relevant against Affinity, against any Aether Vial decks, Chalices, which are a huge pain to our strategy. It's good. Fury Charm is something I'm testing out. It's another way to destroy artifacts, but also it's not a dead card in our hand if we're bringing in artifact destruction against, for example, Merfolk or other Aether Vial decks, where if they happen to not draw those artifacts, they would normally be a dead card in our hand. Smash the Smithereens because you don't have a target artifact. But Fury Charm you can still cast if you need to combo out. It gives us a little bit of evasion, a little bit of pump. Yes, it's very expensive, but it's better than just being a dead card. Dragon's Claws here against Burn. We cast a lot of red spells. They cast a lot of red spells. I used to play Blue-Red Delver, and this did a lot of work. So I have one on the board here against Burn just because I have recently lost a match or two to Burn. And this gives us just a little bit more staying power to get enough cards to combo out and beat them. That's my build, and yeah, let's go play some games.